Each spring I've spent here, I can remember a seasonal spurt of conversation between pews. Friends asking friends if they're going to give a speech when they're seniors. Every student pictures themselves up here at some point. It's such a special experience, it's hard not to imagine yourself, all alone, facing your whole community, allowing each one of your exposed words to strike and linger in the space before you. To me, it's always existed as an extension of the way I felt when singing at lessons and carols or when playing in basketball games. In each of these moments, I'm giving my community a glimpse into what makes me, me. We all experience these moments of self-expression every single day in our own channels. However, I think there is something uniquely special in the bravery and vulnerability of sharing yourself with your school in a place separate from the stage or court. Sharing yourself through nothing but your own words. So, since the very beginning, I have remained faithful to a vague, yet somewhat self-assured reply of yes whenever I was asked if I'm going to someday give one. Yet, as the years went on and the answers around me shifted away from the affirmative, I noticed there was a clear common thread causing all of that hesitation. I think as underclassmen, we sit listening to our older, seemingly wiser peers with the expectation that something life-changing will happen to each of us in the course of our 4-year stint here. Something so monumental that it will become the thesis to every college essay we will write and the backbone to our very own speech that looms in the intangible future of our senior year. And as we got older, we naturally shied away from the opportunity to tell a story for the fear of not really having one beneath us. The most common reply when I've asked why not is undoubtedly I have nothing to write about or I don't have anything worth sharing. There is not a single person, student and adult alike, that I know at this school without a meaningful narrative within them. I guarantee each and every one of your journeys at this very place includes uncountable mistakes made, lessons learned, and laughs shared. Your story does not need to be earth-shattering for it to have significance. It does not have to be philosophical to touch somebody. To me, the beauty of the chapel talk lies less so in the story told than it does in the vulnerability of the individual. So much of my appreciation for these speeches has to do with my admiration for all the transparency that's gone before me. The combination of that and my love for words is what drives my desire to still be up here before you after all this time. These speeches don't just evaporate into thin air at 10:55. They have a capability to seep into the discussions of the first few minutes of the next block and stick through our minds throughout the day. I often find myself thinking of Miss Perkins' demolition of the Brooks type and Mr. Hesse's praise for our joyful noise. Freshman year, Ray New's senior speech was amongst the first that I heard, and her message has called out to me during each of my school years here. And while I have spent my fair share of chapels repeatedly reciting my French Quizlets in my head, I eventually made the shift that everyone makes at some point, to engage. Every meditation, hymn, and speech are there for a reason. They exist for us to take in, not tune out. Essentially, I want to celebrate vulnerability. This word, while rich with meaning, has more negative connotations than positive. However, it belongs perfectly amid my words, because without it, my own tiny story would be far from complete. This word brings me back to my roots at this place, and maybe all of ours to some extent. The summer before freshman year, my dad offered me some advice that I didn't exactly want to hear, but has stuck with me ever since. In a moment of anxiety about my rapidly approaching new beginning, he said, "You're going to have to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable." In hindsight, that was exactly what I needed to hear right then, and it is exactly what I still need to be reminded of today. While it be neither now nor then an easy feat, I have to accredit some of my most impactful moments here to that very mindset. It may not exactly be a warm and cozy mantra stamped on admissions materials, but it is something that every Brooks student learns to live out in their own way. It is a skill that may sting in the learning phase, but one that will yield a lifetime of reward. If I could tell my then 14-year-old self one thing to aid her in her next 4 years, it would be to never sacrifice anything at the altar of vulnerability. Finding your footing in high school is hard. There was a time when I was giving everyone around me a different version of myself, and that realization scared me. Because of this, I started to lose sight of my unfiltered and honest self. The way I eventually reclaimed that sense of self was by becoming comfortable with the incredibly uncomfortable sensation of vulnerability. After freshman year, I realized something that had come to be a big part of my life and identity here was no longer bringing me joy. At first, I was scared of the repercussions and reactions that would come with making a change. But I went and had that difficult conversation anyways. Because of that moment of transparency, I created for myself time and space to welcome a resonant return of passion that has shaped my character to an even greater degree. Now, I'm the first one to tell my friends, if something's not making them happy, they deserve to make a change. Sophomore year, I found myself over my head in perfectionism-born procrastination. At my weakest moment, I reached out to my teacher for help with nothing but honesty, feeling incredibly vulnerable. I feared punishment, but instead, I received the help I needed to regain all the strength I'd lost. I learned that no one can do this on their own. There's no shame in asking for a little help with anything. The closest relationships I've made at this school were built upon courageous, stinging honesty and the bonds that are born from it. Allowing someone in breeds nothing but authenticity. When all else failed, I found myself with a box of tissues on my advisor's couch, and I wouldn't take back a single tear. The moments when I felt the most hopelessly vulnerable are the same ones that have made me a better person. I can tell you that the safety net really is there, and it's perfectly safe to jump. So here I am, coming full circle in my own miniature significance, sharing with you the derivatives of my high school journal and mind. My message for those with high school still left ahead of them may sound somewhat incomplete, but it's what I've learned so far. It's inevitable you might not find within Brooks that one neatly wrapped fragment of advice or wisdom pre-packaged to share like you might have once imagined you would. And for everybody else with a high school graduation nearly upon or behind them, I'm almost positive that all of this applies far beyond these chapel walls in the 251 acres of this campus. If you do happen to stumble upon something meaningful, you will forever have a gift to share with the world. But if not, it is so important that you listen closely to those who claim to have found their own. Listen in chapel. Look for meaning and stories in everything. The tiny things, the momentous things, the painful things, and the beautiful things. Sift through it all, pull out whatever calls to you, and share your discoveries with as many souls as you can. If there is ever something in the way of your own self-expression, I encourage you to make a change. The best gift you can give is your truest self. Somewhere in your journey here, find a moment to break down your walls and bear it all in whatever way calls out to you. There is courage and bravery in being vulnerable. The truth is, I think these stories of ours will always be evolving and need perpetual revising. But as I've learned from some truly incredible teachers along the way, a perfect way to begin revision is to read your words out loud. Thank you.